In his lifetime, the great French Impressionist painter Corot painted 2,000 canvases. Of that number, more than 3,000 are in the United States. The subject tonight is forgery, the gentle art of forgery, a fascinating subject that is as old as art itself. And what makes it fascinating is that we know so little about it. We can only talk about unsuccessful forgeries. How many successful ones are hanging in museums and private collections, we can only guess. All those Corots are a case in point. The thing about forgers is that they hit us in the two most sensitive parts of our anatomy, our pocketbook and our aesthetics, and they play upon our least attractive quality, greed.
100,000 I have at $100,000 for it now. At $100,000, 100,000, 100,000 in the center of the room.
At practically every major sale, new record prices for artists for periods of art are established. At Sotheby's and Christie's in London, at Park Burnett in New York, old master works are knocked down at auction for millions of dollars.
900,000, 1 million guineas, 1,100,000,
300,000 over here now.
A few feet of canvas can be, inch for inch, the most valuable commodity in the world. It's not surprising, then, that the art market has quietly attracted, dollar for dollar, some of the world's most talented scoundrels. There's hardly a museum in the world that has not, in good faith, hung great master works actually painted by great master forgers. Rembrandt was for a long time a tempting favorite for Dutch forgers trained in the traditional academic style of the master. Botticelli, the preserve of the very, very rich and the very important museums, has had some remarkably talented admirers. This is an original by the great Florentine master. This is a forgery, made in the 30s, not discovered until the 60s. And even what must be the most famous painting in the world, La Gioconda, the Mona Lisa. Every few years a new one turns up whose owner claims is the real one, the Leonardo. Is this the real one? Or is this the Da Vinci? Both are copies. This is the Mona Lisa, the one hanging in the Louvre, which experts agree may not be the best, but is certainly the first. Detecting forgeries of old masters has become a relatively easy job. Technology can date pigment and canvas, even the dust and soot that great forgers use to give the impression of 300 or 400 years of time. Forgers of the period, and there have been forgers as long as there's been painting, are almost impossible to detect. Then it becomes a question of style, over which generation after generation of experts go to their graves still arguing.
But the most difficult man to catch is the forger of 20th century paintings, the post-impressionist masters, Picasso, Chagall, Matisse, and Modigliani. Walk into any decent art shop, you can buy the same paper they use, the same canvas, the same paint. It could be argued that you don't even have to be much of a painter to paint in the manner of some of the modern masters. And that is the essence of all art forgery. Not to simply copy a painting by, say, Picasso, but to sit down and create out of a whole canvas an entirely new Picasso, one that he might have painted. Some examples.
Is this the Chagall or this? Is this the fake Modigliani or this? Did Henri Matisse paint this one or this one? All the fakes we've seen were painted by the same man. His name? Well, I quote from a confidential French Interpol file, number 506/61. Henri Haddad, born Colombes, France. Alias Philippe Ducrest, born Dijon. Alias Georges Delaunay, born Vienne, France. Alias Michel Leroy, born Nice. He is best known as David Stein, born Alexandria, Egypt. One of the most charming villains ever to take brush in hand and stroll down the Champs-Élysées and Park Avenue and through the salons of Palm Beach. David Stein made a career and a fortune out of selling cut-rate paintings in the manner of the modern masters. It took one of the artists he was forging to finally catch him out. And now Stein, or Haddad, or whatever his name is, has served prison sentences in the United States and France. He lives in Paris.
David Stein is still painting, but today he paints under his own name and signs these pictures with his own name. He no longer signs Chagall or Modigliani or Picasso. But for the purposes of this broadcast, we asked him to paint for us a Chagall. David, how would you have presented it to a gallery or a private collector?
Well, as an original gouache by Marc Chagall.
David, how did it all start? How did you get into art forgery?
Well, I was working for a French newspaper. One day I wanted to find out really what it was all about as far as dealing with paintings. And I did a little Picasso drawing. And I went to see an art dealer I knew in Paris. And I had sort of built up a story that I got it from my aunt. And then she had it from Picasso in the south of France. And without any paper of authentication or nothing. And just bought it for $2,000. He thinks it's a genuine Picasso, and he bought a forgery. And he bought it so easily that it's unbelievable. Then I carried on from there. Eventually I became successful in Paris, in the south of France, and I went to Italy, Spain, Austria, England, and I sold in all these countries.
How much money do you think you made?
In the United States, when the investigation was found out exactly how much painting were sold and how much business we did, was exactly $857,000, close to $1 million.
How come the dealers were so easily fooled over the years?
Well, because they want to make money. They don't, they're not very scrupulous about making money, so they close their eyes, even if they have some suspicion about a painting.
Do you think that goes on today, still?
Oh, this is the whole art market is like that.
What's the most anyone ever paid you for a forgery?
There was a painting which was a Chagall, oil, which went for $84,000. An oil.
Where is it now?
Well, I don't know, because actually this painting never came up in the investigation. It was sold in the United States.
To whom?
It was sold to a collector by the name of L.D. Cohen.
And is it hanging on his walls today?
I don't know.
L.D. Cohen lives in Palm Beach, Florida. Palm Beach is considered, one art dealer told me, as a con man's paradise. The old and the new money that has retired along this Gold Coast may not know much about art, but it can afford just about anything. And like most of the very rich, they are constantly vigilant for a bargain. So when David Stein, seasoned art forger, went down to Palm Beach, it was written in the stars that he would meet L.D. Cohen, new art collector.
Tell me about Stein. What was his
In my
spiel to
opinion,
you?
Stein is an absolute genius. This man is in the common parlance, a con man par excellence. He's suave, he's good-looking, he's talented. He has a flair for conversation. Now, we had a piano here. He sat down, he played Chopin's music as beautifully as you've seen Rachmaninoff. He's a great piano player. And on a moment's notice, he can toss off a Chagall or a Picasso. You'd never know the difference. And he met society here. He was destitute. He immediately bought a Rolls Royce, which he never paid for. He ensconced himself in a beautiful apartment in the finest hotel in the colony. He surrounded himself with beautiful women. And before you knew it, he was giving great paintings to charity, so he'd get in the limelight. And he enticed a lot of people to buy art. He really was a master showman.
Stein says that you bought a an $84,000 oil by Chagall from him.
A what?
An $84,000 oil painting.
I never paid $84,000 for any painting in my life, nor did I buy any Chagall. The highest I paid for a French painting was $45,000 for that Valtet that you saw. I never bought any French art outside that one painting.
Why would Stein make that claim? He said that that was one of the counts that didn't come up against him. It was never
never heard. It's entirely new to me, what you're saying, because I never bought a Chagall in that price range at all. We had little sketches Chagalls, $2,000 to $3,000. What would prompt him to say that? I don't know what benefit he would get in saying that. Maybe some other Cohen. Cohen, you know, Cohen's are common names.
No, he said L.D. Cohen.
L.D. Cohen. The only paintings I bought Chagalls, and the Dufy, which was good, and the Chirico and the Picasso. But never bought a Chagall in that range, price range at all. At no time.
I forget how many counts there were against David in the original indictment, 90 or 100, something like that. But do you think that there were more people who bought pictures from him who refused to come forward at the time?
It's common knowledge. Nobody hates to be defrauded, and usually when they're defrauded, they hate to tell you they were defrauded. So I think there were a numerous amount of people here that were taken in by Stein and will never report it. People have an abhorrence to show that they were fleeced. You know that.
That Chagall that you sold to Mr. Cohen of Palm Beach, how long did it take you to paint that picture?
About 3 or 4 days.
And was that, how long normally did it take you to knock out say a Chagall drawing or a Picasso drawing?
Or just, you know, just a morning or an afternoon or something, a few hours.
How do you think the artists themselves react towards forgeries?
Maybe you know the story about Picasso and Gertrude Stein. One day he comes to Gertrude Stein's place, and then she said that she just lost a little painting by Cézanne representing an apple. So and she was all lost about it, you know, furious. And so he said, well, don't worry, I'll come back in a couple of hours and I will have this little painting done for you. Which is what he did. He came back and he had painted a little Cézanne. And it's probably now somewhere in a museum or in a collection as a Cézanne. In fact, it's a Picasso. And it's a forgery, too.
Stein did not believe in beginning small. One of his first acts on arriving in the United States was to set himself up in an expensive apartment and gallery on Park Avenue. He was penniless. His only collateral, an armload of paintings. Stein proceeded to, as they say, make the scene in New York. Met the right people, went to the right parties, and sold pictures to well-established galleries. When he was finally caught, he was indicted on 97 counts of grand larceny. None of the dealers to whom he sold pictures cared to comment about Stein, the art business, or forgery. David Stein has no compunction about talking.
Do you think that in principle the art dealers, the art world is anxious to expose forgers like yourself?
No, no. I think that they want to avoid all these things because it kills their business.
How?
Because all the business is wrong. You see, as far as these ridiculous prices you put on paintings or drawings, why is this artist who has such a high quotation and other artists who have real talent as well can't make it? Because it's just a speculation. It's a sort of a stock exchange.
It's a magnificent collection you have. Why do you collect art?
About 4 years ago, when I started, the stock market was at a notoriously high figure. So I sold the stock in the market and I bought the art. The market went down and the art went up.
David, who are the real victims?
Are they really victims?
The dealers.
So you couldn't say that the dealers are really victims. You know, they make so much money anyway that they can't be victims.
So what you were doing was playing on their greed?
Yes, you can say that.
By offering them cut-rate Picassos and Chagalls.
And other too, Matisse and Dufy and Vlaminck and Van Dongen and Cocteau's and quite a lot.
Well, once you were exposed, did people refuse to believe that they'd been taken? Were they just as happy to look at a painting on the wall and say, that is not a David Stein, it is a Pablo Picasso?
Yes, I think that a lot of people wanted to keep these paintings, that even knowing sometimes that they were my forgery. Like I have an example for a friend of mine. I had sold her a Chagall. The people of the district attorney's office went to see her and asked her to give this painting for evidence. And she says, no, it's not going to leave my walls. I want to keep this painting. I don't care if it's signed Marc Chagall or whatever. I said, I like the painting, I want to keep it.
The woman who bought this picture is Ankie Johnson, a wealthy New York businesswoman. She is a former wife of Charles Revson, the cosmetic tycoon.
When David Stein admitted that he painted this Chagall, why did you not want to bring charges against him? Why did you prefer to keep the picture?
Because I loved the picture, and I always liked Chagall, and I couldn't see any difference. As a matter of fact, when it was hanging in my apartment at the Sherry Netherlands, a very well-known art dealer, who I wouldn't say by name right now because I don't think that would be fair, told me that he said, oh, Ankie, you have a marvelous Chagall there. So, and I think, why should you destroy something that you like very much?
So it doesn't make any difference to you?
It really doesn't, no. I think a picture, if you like it, if it's painted by Chagall or by David Stein at this time, I don't think it makes any difference. Nobody can tell the difference. It's just the idea, maybe, that it's not worth the money, but I don't know. I don't think that's very important.
Don't you think it's extraordinary? Every victim of his that I've spoken to, yourself, another victim, everyone who's met him, myself, the district attorney at the time was now a judge. Not one of these people had a bad word to say about this man.
Well, it's, I suppose he is a nice man. It's just that I think if he would have had a very rich father, that he wouldn't have had to do this. He just liked to live very well, and that was an easy way of making a lot of money in a short time. He didn't want to take the time to really do his own work and paint and, you know, start like the starving artist. That's not David Stein's style. He would like to ride around in a Bentley, live on Park Avenue, like we all like to do, and he wanted to do it in a hurry.
Okay, it's pretty much done now. If I took this painting into a gallery, how much do you think a dealer would offer me for it?
Well, actually, a painting like this one, we're quoted about $30,000. Now, of course, if you would take it to a gallery yourself, they'll probably bargain with you down to $20,000 or something.
Do you think there's any chance that if I walked out of this studio now down St. Germain and into a gallery, I could see a David Stein under the name of Picasso for sale?
Well, there's at least there could be about 200 or 300 chances.
David Stein was finally caught when he was in the process of selling 3 Chagalls to a New York dealer. Marc Chagall himself happened to be in New York at the time and was asked to confirm or deny. Diabolical was all he said. But Madame Chagall was more cautious. She asked the dealer first how much he paid for the pictures. When he quoted a bargain price, she said, "How could you believe there were Chagalls at that price?"